The main difficulty I see with performance-based funding has to do with the graduation rate in 4 years. It's not, I think that impacts first-generation and low-income students more than other ones. So it's not so much the dropout rates, but most of or many of our first-generation low-income students are taking 5 or 6 years to graduate. The main reason for that is most of them are working pretty much full-time jobs also, so they're limited to maybe only 12 hours. The ones who are low income do not have the ability to take summer classes as often as students maybe, since we don't have any financial aid in the summer. I know they have to take some summer classes, but they probably aren't going to take more than they're required to take. So they end up stretching the length of time they have. So I think that's part of the performance-based funding that I think really hurts us, because it's not that our students don't graduate, they just don't graduate in the 4 years. Well, not really, because we charge per credit hour. So if they're only taking 12 hours, they're only paying for 12. There are some schools that might do something like a school where I was previously. Whether you took 12 hours or 18 hours, it was the same cost. So tuition was set. So that was more encouragement to take the 18 hours because I'm getting more credits for less money. Most of our first generation low income students are probably going to be living at home. So they're not paying additional for dorms. They're paying certainly to eat and live in their own homes. But in the long run, it probably doesn't. And if they're low income, their Pell Grant is good for 5 years, so they've got, that money coming in. So while they're not earning money, you could certainly say if you finish in 4 years and then you get a job, you start earning. If you've paid for it, you're going to pay for your full number of credits that you need anyway. So, that's one of the things, regardless. I like the fixed tuition 12 hours to 18 hours from the school where I was, because it did encourage students to go ahead and take more hours. And since it was such a large, scan, somebody who had to work full time, that 12 hours was what they probably were going to take regardless. The disadvantage again comes to what it means then is that students that are not low income probably do not have to work a job, therefore can finish college sooner. Those who are low income still are going to be taking only the 12 hours. They will then end up paying more in the long run because they're paying each year for the fixed income, if that makes sense.
It does.
I've been to a number of those meetings. I think that there's some possibilities there. One of the things, and I also had a meeting with President Martin, and at the time I suggested several things to him also. I think that first generation students particularly, and I know you got those statistics earlier, and like I think I sent you the updated definition, which doesn't include anything on the financial need. The other thing that's, and I think it's important that we look at the two levels of first generation students. There are those whose parents had no college, no certificate, no training beyond high school. That is a different group of parents that I would say probably have a different mindset than those parents that either have an associate's degree or a certificate or went to college and dropped out. Sometimes I worry more about the students whose parents went to college and dropped out, about what they're saying to their children. If that, say I decide I can't do it anymore, and they say, it's okay, I dropped out and I was fine. Whereas it seems to me that parents that either don't even have a high school education or just have the high school education are very proud of their son or daughter. They just don't know how to navigate the system. So a good example I always use is a friend of mine when I was at another university. She now has a PhD in social work, But when she first went to school, she went to Western Kentucky University. Her parents had never been to college. They drove her to college, to Western Kentucky, dropped her at the arena, which is where all the registration was. And at that time, you would go from table to table. So like we'd go to this table and you sign up for your English class. You go to this table, sign up for your history class. And you go all the way around the gym signing up for your classes. And then you get to the table where the registrar is. She handed her paper to the registrar, and the registrar looked at it and said, all of your classes are closed except one. So somebody who had been to college before, you would say, okay, I have to go back here to the English table and figure out which one. Instead, she called her parents, and her father said to her, we'll come pick you up and we'll try again next semester. So it's that kind of, I mean, when I said closed to you, you knew what that meant. For them, the parents, they had no idea what that meant. So we'll try again next semester. Thankfully, somebody called her, and it's a matter of, we go back over here to this table and you're not going to get your ideal schedule. But, we know that this class is still open, so let's get you in this one. So it's those kinds of things that I think that cause the problems with first-generation parents and the students. Once the student gets here, I remember at one school where I had a student, and he came to me very upset at the end of his first semester because we were doing sign-up for second semester. And he said he didn't know that he could handle more classes than he was already taking. He didn't know he stopped his classes from first semester. He thought we wanted him to now add another 5 classes. And so even once they get in school, if they call home, the parents are saying, well, what's everybody else doing? It's like, well, they're signing up for classes. Well, sign up for more then. So it's things that we may not think about. It's one of the things that they find, and I don't know why this is, but that first generation students tend not to use the resources available at colleges as much as students whose parents have been to college. So whether it's the parent, that's been to college that says, I didn't discover tutoring until I was a senior and I wish I had before, that are able to say that to their son or daughter, and so that student then, actually does it. Or if there's more, I don't even know if there's a fear that I'm not supposed to need help because I'm in college, something like that. So, I think those are the few of the things. There are, of course, the families that maybe are not supportive. And again, I can think of one family whose daughter came here, and she tells the story now. She's graduated and she's a teacher in the district now. But her father works for U.S. Sugar. As a worker in U.S. Sugar, even though he's works in the field, so it's very hard, very, labor-intensive work, he makes almost $70,000 a year. So when she started school, he kept saying, why? Why are you going to college? I'm making this much money. She became a teacher. And she said she was so proud when she got her first job and went to see him, and her beginning salary was $38,000. And he said, so you have a college education, now you've got all these loans, you're going to make $38,000, and I don't have any of that, and I make $70,000. And so, yeah, how do you, if that's the support you have from home, there's lots of issues. Another thing that we find with first-generation students, particularly in this area, is we have to take into consideration culture. And for Hispanic students, family is always going to come first. And so you'll have many Hispanic students that they are working maybe not to pay for their college. Maybe they got enough scholarships and stuff to do that, but they're having to work because they're helping support the family. And that stays primarily on their mind. Or they can't live on campus, or they can't come to campus for after-hours stuff because they have to go home and take care of siblings. They might not be able to do an internship because they want them to do something in the evenings. So it's all those kinds of things that kind of get in the way of finishing a degree in 4 years, and may even get in the way of, dropping out of school. Especially if, you've got a parent, like I said, the one who's like, well, there's an opening, at the plant, we can get you on for this much, we can't give you any more. You know, I think those are probably big things, you know, that come up.